Hello everyone and welcome to today's release webinar. My name is Jenny and I'll be facilitating today's event. And today I'm joined by Holly, April and Harriet, all from the Code Manager. And just before we get started, I just want to go through some housekeeping with you all. So we ask that you keep your cameras and microphones off. I think they've already been set to that setting. The event will be recorded and the slides will be made available on the rec portal later this week. We will be using Slido. The QR code is on the screen now, as well as the joining code, and I'll also pop a link in the chat for everyone. And there will also be opportunities for a Q&A throughout, so if you do have any questions at any point, just pop them into Slido. So there's a link in the chat now. And just while people are joining that Slido, I will share the agenda with you all. So we do have quite a few things to get through, so I will hand over to Holly Law.
Thank you. Hi everyone. As Jenny mentioned, I'm Holly and I'm the Change Delivery and Release Manager for the Retail Energy Code. And today I'm going to be giving you a high-level overview of the change proposals that are to be included on the REC MHHS M8 release. There is quite a lot to cover, so if you have any questions, please don't wait till the end. Either pop them in Slido or pop your hand up as well, and we will try our best to answer them for you. If we could move on to the next slide. So this is the changes that are planned for the 22nd of September delivery, which is the REC MHHS release for milestone M8, which is code changes delivered. The 22nd of September 2025 is the date which is going to be across all impacted industry codes. So that's the REC, BSC and DECUSA. The changes that are planned for this date, we have the MHHS SCR-CPs, and they are R0209, and that's the implementation of market-wide half-hourly settlement arrangements, and that one has been agreed for implementation on the 22nd of September. And then we have R0241, and these are the incremental changes for go live. That is awaiting an authority decision, and that went to Change Panel yesterday with a recommendation to approve the changes. Other MHHS CPs that are targeting that date and have been agreed for that date, we have R044, which is the MHHS programme changes required to the central switching service, R0083, and that's changes to supply number format for MHHS, R097, and that's the consequential changes for CSS smart meter data retriever appointments. And then we have two other technical changes being implemented on that day as well. We have R0222, which is an update to ESME ID rejections. And then we have R0264, and that is housekeeping to the data specification. So they're non-material changes that are being made to clean up the data spec. If we go on to the next slide, I'm going to give you a bit more detail about each of those change proposals that are going to be implemented on the 22nd of September. So the first two are the significant code review changes, and that's R0209 and R0241. R0209 was approved by the authority on the 26th of November 2024, and R0241, as I mentioned previously, the recommendation for approval went to Change Panel yesterday, and that's been sent to the authority, and we are awaiting their decision. So the solution within each of those change proposals, so it covers the changes that are required to the Electricity Inquiry Service, the Electricity Retail Data Service, all the DTM market messages and data items are included within that change. There are new data items being introduced as part of MHHS. And there's also a new data integration platform interface as well. Anything to do with qualification is covered within these changes. Introduction of market segments, MARA appointments, sharing of meter technical details, transitional arrangements, anything to do with the MHHS migration, and there's also new and updated definitions that have been added to Schedule 1 as well. So 12 schedules have been updated as part of these two particular changes. I will go into a bit more detail on the next slide about the products that are being impacted and how they're being impacted. We are introducing a new schedule. There are 4 operational and technical documents updated, and the data specification is also being updated. These change proposals impact all electricity stakeholders and all EES users, and there will be some indirect impact to gas stakeholders too. We move on to the next slide. So this gives you an idea of the schedules that are being changed and the impact to the schedules as well as a result of the MHHS R0209 and 241. So the ones in the red / pink colour, they have quite a large impact. So these are the schedules that will be changing quite significantly due to MHHS, and those are Schedule 1, which is in the interpretations and definitions schedule. Schedule 14, which is metering operations. As I mentioned before, there's going to be a new schedule introduced, and that's around MHHS migration. There's going to be a large impact to the data spec and the market message catalogue, and also the ES API technical specification as well. I won't go through all of these. There's going to be a medium impact on the ones in blue. There's going to be a small impact on the ones in green, and the ones in the light blue, there is no impact on those, although they were consulted on as part of the change, and no changes were identified. Jenny, I think that's probably a good place to pause for questions if we have any yet.
We don't have any questions at the moment, Holly, so I think we'll wait on that and we'll move on for now.
Great, thank you. So other changes that are going to be implemented on the 22nd of September as part of the MHHS release. We have R044, which is MHHS programme changes required to the central switching service. And we also have R97, and that's the consequential change for CSS smart meter data retriever appointments. R44 was approved by the authority on the 2nd of February. And R097 was approved on the 4th of July by the technical expert panel in 2023. So R44 will deliver the CSS system changes related to the smart meter data retriever, specifically the receipt of SMDR appointment data into CSS, and the provision of that data to the smart meter data service provider, whereas R97 will introduce a mechanism to allow for the identification of those SMDR appointment messages. So both of these changes provide a critical element of how the SMDR role will be governed within the new MHHS arrangements, by helping to ensure that only registered SMDRs successfully collect data from smart meters. The impacted products for these two changes are Schedule 1, which is the interpretations and definition schedules. We have Schedule 27 that's impacted, and that's the RMP lifecycle. And there's also going to be an impact to the data specification. Impacted stakeholders are the SMDS provider, and also the CSS provider will be impacted too. We move on to the next slide. So R83 introduces changes to supply number format for MHHS, and this was approved by the authority on the 17th of November. This particular change will replace the data items which make up the top line of the supply number format, and that's to accommodate that the existing data items will no longer be available under the new MHHS settlement design. The benefits to this will mean that we'll still be able to populate the supply number as required by supply license, maintains visibility of data items used by participants, which is used to identify suitable tariffs for consumers, and it will, of course, support the transition to MHHS. The impact of products is the supply number format within the data specification. And stakeholders that will be impacted by this are electricity suppliers and consumers, TPIs, the EES provider, and DNOs. Just to add to this as well, the guidance document is going to be updated. As we know, there's some confusion regarding the population of profile class ID. The profile class should be populated as per the MHHS design. So mandatory for traditional meters, and the valid set PCs 1 to 8 has not changed, so it is going to be updated. And then we have R0222, which is ESME ID update rejections, and this was approved by the technical expert panel on the 25th of June. This particular CP modifies the data enumerations value list for the MOCFlow response code data item, and that's to align code V with validation around the MHHS program interface catalogue data item, which is IF005. There's changes needed to facilitate the MHHS program. It will improve operational efficiencies and outcomes for consumers. The only impacted product as part of this change is to the data spec, and the impacted stakeholders are ERDA and DNOs. And then the next slide. And then finally, the last CP to be implemented as part of the MHHS release is R0264, and this is just the data spec housekeeping. So housekeeping changes make non-material changes to the retail energy code, so therefore there's no consequential impact on parties. This was approved by Change Panel yesterday. And within the energy market data specification, we're going to be removing any NAs, removing any spurious characters, replace speech marks with double apostrophes, and we're also going to add volume allocation service as an entity within the energy market standards definition documents. The benefits is that the rec will be correct and accurate at point of go live. The only impact is to the data spec in all of its formats, and the EMDS standards definition document as well. And as previously mentioned, it makes non-consequential changes to the rec, so there won't be any impacted stakeholders. This is just a summary of the impacted rec category 1 and category 2 documents. I won't go through them line by line. We will share this pack after the webinar, and the recording will be made available as well. So if you do want to go back and have a look, it's a table there, and it shows you which of the products are going to be impacted and which CPs are causing the impact. That's me done. Do we have any questions? If we don't have any on Slido, feel free to pop your hand up, and we can answer any questions that you have.
There aren't any questions in Slido at the minute, Holly.
All right, great. Well, thanks for listening.
Thank you.
I'll hand over to you, April.
Thanks, Holly. So good afternoon, everybody. I'm just going to provide us with a brief overview of how the energy market data specification and the DTC access database has been updated for the MHHS programme, and some of the next steps to take us through to MA go live in September. So for the EMDS, we conducted an activity in late 2024, which was to create a bespoke MHHS EMDS database. So this contains all of the new DIP if messages and the BSC report or the ECS messages, and made updates to any existing market messages for the purposes of MHHS. This also included updates to all existing data items and adding new ones, and the same with any associated scenario variants for all of the relevant market messages. So this version contained all of the necessary updates to all the affected items with all code owners. So we're talking REC, BSC and DACUSA. And this bespoke MHHS database went through a number of iterations, leading us to the most recent one, which was version 1.4. And this was made available to parties in HTML format and published through the MHHS programme website. And where relevant, some versions were also made available on associated REC change proposal pages. So for the RO241, for example. We've now completed the relevant merging of the bespoke MHHS EMDS and the live BAU EMDS databases, and this will be iterated to version 4.00. We will be publishing a pre-release version of the database in HTML and SQL backpack format, and that will be made available on the usual REC portal pre-release pages ahead of M8 in early September. For the DTC Access database, unlike the EMDS, only one version of the DTC catalogue can be made available to users at any one time. So over the course of the last few months, additions for MHHS have been implemented and released to support parties undertaking MHHS SID testing. We had to apply some principles as to what could be included into that live database to ensure that no operational data was being implicated. And this has resulted in additions for new flows being added or existing flows being updated with test status flags. And the new additional scenario variants were also included for testing purposes. So we are currently in progress of updating the DTC to set all the messages that were set with test statuses to operational, and additionally updating data item and market message descriptions, as well as changes to the data item enumeration fields. These updates will all be made and set to version 15.0 from a DTC perspective. So we are due to share the updated catalogue with Electrolink in their role as DTS provider in early August. And once this latest catalogue has undergone testing and validation, we will then publish a pre-release version on the REC portal for parties to pick up. And we anticipate that this is going to be in late August, early September. For both the EMDS and the DTC, we will be issuing notifications to parties when the pre-releases have been published on the portal. Those notifications go via email to those that are on our data specification distribution list. So if you're not already subscribed, but you would like to know when the pre-releases are published, you can subscribe to the distribution list by sending any named contact information across to inquiries@recmanager.co.uk. We can go to the next slide, please.
Thank you, April. Just before we move on, I can see Chris
Sure.
has his hand raised, so I'm just going to unmute him now. And I assume you have a question? I think you should be able to. Yeah, should be able to.
Can you hear me now? Thank you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thanks. Good morning. Oh, good afternoon, even. Sorry, I did type it in the Sligo, but unfortunately, there was too many characters, so I had to abandon that and put my hand up late. It was really a question for Holly. If we can, I'm sorry to go back a slide. It was regarding the top line of the. Hi, Holly. You okay?
Yes, you.
Yes, fine, thank you. Sorry, I couldn't get my typing down to the requisite characters. It was to do with the top line. Currently, as you know, and the top line of the MPAN is something like S02, 123, and then 123, where it's the profile, the meter classification, and the line loss factor. I realise those are going to change to. I think the profile is staying, although it might just be 00. Is that right? First of all,
I'm actually going to let Harriet jump in because she'll be able to answer that better than me.
Okay.
Yeah. So with the profile class, the profile class is staying, and for metering points that haven't migrated yet, kind of populate it as you do now.
Yep.
And then for when metering points have started to migrate, it's basically the population needs to be as per the MHHS design for the population as you would do in the market messages. So there isn't any different requirement as such for the supply number. So it should be, and that's why, as I said, as Holly said, there is some confusion in the guidance document around that, and it's a limited number of profile classes that are being used in the settlement processes, but actually it's mandatory for traditional meters to include the profile class for the migrated metering points.
Yes, so profile sort of stays as 2 characters no matter what, but I'm more interested in the middle bit, the MTC, which is currently 3 characters, and I believe the new SSC version is 4 characters, so it could start 0, 3, 4, 5 or something, but it's 4. My point is it's 4 characters, not 3 characters, and it's important from a tech point of view because our field that holds the current MTC only accepts 3 characters, but I believe it will either be, I believe it's going to be 4 characters, and that's really what I want to nail down. Is it 4 characters? So the top line changes from 9 to 10 characters, basically.
Yes, essentially, yeah.
Yes,
so the
right.
at go live, so at 22nd of September, it's the MTC is no longer populated. It is the SSC that's populated in that kind of section of the supply number, and that's an increased digit number. That's right.
Correct. Yeah, that's it. I've been trying to get to the bottom of that question and numerous webinars with numerous suppliers. Great. So it just means we need to change our field setting because it'll all fall over when we try and do the API searches. So that's fine. So perfect. I know the tariff ID stays 3 characters, the same as the line loss factor. Essentially, it's just a rename, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Perfect. Sorry about that. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you for your question, Chris. I think there was also a question on Slido while we're covering a few questions, just asking, will any of the qualification forms we are working on also be updated or changed?
So the by the qualification forms, assuming this kind of relates to the kind of the entry assessment forms and the qualification forms that kind of part of maintenance of qualification. So those have been updated actually at the back end of last year. So we'll come on to that. Actually, we're going to cover some category 3 documentation changes in a couple of minutes after April's finished with the data specification detail. And so those have been reviewed and updated already. And then nothing else is required at the moment, but those will kind of fall into the standard kind of annual reviews that the performance assurance team, qualification teams will be doing as standard.
Perfect. Thank you, Harriet.
Hopefully that answers the question. Thank you.
We have one more question, sorry. Just before we move on, just to clarify, the MTC remains a value that must be populated as per normal, but won't be in the top line.
So for the meter time switch code for legacy, like for the non-migrated, yeah, that doesn't disappear until as a data item overall until the metering point becomes an MHHS metering point.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And we have no more questions, so we'll move on.
Thank you. I think we're on to the next slide, please, Jenny. Right. Okay, so picking up where we left off, in addition to the work that's been conducted on the EMDS and the DTC databases, we've also been working on the market messages and data item dashboards, which are accessible via the REC portal. So we've had to make some changes to the interface to allow for the new MHHS data attribute fields to be presented. So I'm just going to give a very short run through of what those changes are and how, and the examples you can see on the screen of how these will be presented. So just to confirm that these new interfaces are not live yet, but they will be as per the M8 dates, so in 22nd of September. So first up, we'll look at the market messages screen. So where there's any new MHHS market message in effect, new MHHS attributes containing the DIP delivery pattern and the security pattern will be identified at the top of the screen. So you can see there that underneath the identifier and next to the existing points of legacy reference and message version, there's a couple of new portlets available there. And then additionally, we're looking down at the scenario variance table, which is at the bottom of the screenshot there. As the new DIP or the if messages use specific events, these have meant changes to the scenario variant table have been made. So while it does look very similar, there are some subtle changes. So the name of the event will be specified. The source field will stay the same, but may have some new roles. So as you can see on the example on the screen, the if003 message has the SMRS, the supplier meter registration service, as the source. And the main change that you'll notice here is that there is no target field included. And this is because of the routing rules associated to the DIP messages, which we're going to look at in a moment. But as usual on this table, you will also be able to see the code owner for each of the event. So if we can just move on to the next slide, please. Okay, so we're sticking to the same screen, but the slide wasn't quite big enough to put the whole thing in here. But as we just mentioned a moment ago, under each of the events, there is, or the scenario variants in the table, there is an associated set of routing rules. So these routing rules will now be found under the flow structure table for the market messages page, and they will confirm which roles fall into always primary and secondary fields. So there may be multiple roles included, and this is essentially the reason why we didn't put it into the scenario variance table, as it was going to become very big and quite convoluted, and we wanted to make sure that the information was accessible and understood and as clear as possible. So the overall functionality of the market message interface remains the same, in that only one scenario variant or / event can be selected, and then the relevant flow structure table will be presented underneath, which is what we see on the screen here. So the routing rules and the prescribed roles that fall into each of these will be presented as the screen shows, but the following structure of the flow will be exactly the same format as you're used to. Obviously, there will be changes to represent group IDs and the new data items that are included. And just to note that all of the new data attribute fields, or the definitions, are described in the EMDS standards definition document, and that document will then be released in line with M8 as well. And then just a final note to say that the changes that we've looked at here for market messages are specifically for messages sent via the DIP. So all of the existing market messages will remain with the current interface, and you'll still see the same scenario variant table with source and target fields included, and there'll be no routing rules confirmed within the flow structure table. And then just to very quickly move on to the next slide, we'll see how the data items interface is going to look. So the main changes that you're going to see here is that if it is an associated MHHS data item, there will be a new table confirming MHHS information. So this will include the MHHS data classification, MHHS nullable info, the MHHS data type, and the associated YAML name. So once again, all of these new data fields and definitions will be contained within the standards definition document. And this table will only be found again where an MHHS data item is present. There will be some cases where the MHHS data item has been linked to an existing DTC J item. So you'll be able to identify where this is the case through the legacy reference portlet at the very top of the screen. So this will, where the case has been that the data items have been linked, in there you will be able to see the MHHS DI and the associated J reference. I think that brings me to the end of the updates on the data specification. So if there are any questions, happy to take those now.
Thanks, April. There aren't any questions at the moment, so I think we'll move on.
Thanks all. Over to you, Harriet.
Okay, thank you. So as I mentioned, there are a number of Category 3 documents that have been updated in readiness for MHHS as well. This slide kind of gives you a bit of an overall plan of what's been picked up from the kind of code drafting project, and gives you a bit of a back view of what's already been reviewed and implemented, and what's coming. So slightly outside of the release, the performance assurance operating plan, so the annual review and updates, that will be being updated again in September, but slightly outside of the release as part of BAU activity. And then the Category 3 documents that we most of which have already been through and are confirmed, that will be part of this release and go live at the same time as the other documents are here. So the third party intermediary code of practice, that's one's to be confirmed, just because of the timing of some an existing change that's going through. If that change doesn't go through, we just need to make a minor amendment to the wording to do with the annual consumption in that code of practice, and we'll make sure that that goes through at M8 so that that's clear. The EES user guides are being updated, and there's some new metering guidance documents that are being published. So the sharing meter asset data guidance and a change of market segment guidance. There's also the meter operator agent appointment guidance, which is out for consultation at the moment. They're all being updated. The first two of those were approved at MEP last week, and are available on the portal pages. And then there's a new process for and some new meter configuration tables, which we held a webinar on last week. Those tables and the process for those will also go live as part of the M8 release. There's updates, a new MHHS version for the guidance on electricity metering points. The electricity data access matrix and the EES user categories have been updated, and that will also go live as part of the release. And the last one on there is one that's already been implemented, updating the TEP terms of reference to make sure that the new DIP interfaces and everything are covered within the scope of the technical expert panel. So all of these documents that have been kind of consulted on and approved already are sitting within the REC portal under the MHHS specific wiki pages, so those can be looked at in advance. But obviously they won't be going live, so they won't be in the main area of the portal documentation at the moment. But you do have access to those if you need, and I think we've got the links to those in later slides. If there's any questions on any of these, happy to take those now.
I can't see any questions just at the minute, so I think we'll move on for now.
Okay. Oh, everyone to go. So I was just going to go back to those slides just to we've included in the pack the links to so the REC release page is the standard release pages that you would normally have for a REC release. The first one of those, the M8 REC release pages, as I mentioned, under the wiki pages. If you go through that page to the release, you can also access that category 3 page, and that you can see there it's in the side menu as well. So all lots of background information in that wiki area as well. Thank you.
And we have a question from Paul. Will the MPRS validation rules doc be available on the REC portal? Be updated for MHHS, for example, to include new DIP messages that MPRS, SMRS. Oh, that's a lot of acronyms.
Yes,
will receive.
Yeah, no, I can answer that one. That's fine. So, St Clement's, the provider for MPAS for these services, will be updating that validation rules document, and it will be made available. I don't have exact timings or location of where that will be, but it is being updated and shared. But we can provide information on that closer to the time.
Perfect. Thank you, Harriet. No more questions for now, so we'll move on.
Same with me. Thanks, Jenny. So I just wanted to give you a bit of a kind of a wider view of the rest of what's happening for MHHS Go Live. Obviously, what we've talked about here is very REC specific and REC release specific, but obviously there's quite a lot of other activity going on to get us to that point, and the systems go live and things. So Jenny, we go on to the next slide. So MHHS Go Live is essentially the point at which the central systems are kind of ready for migration to start, and that's known as milestone M10. And is also when the new and updated obligations go into the code. So and that's milestone 8, and that's the release that we're talking about. So the MHHS design, which has obviously been translated into the code, and that what's coming through the significant code for UCPs that we were talking about earlier, that's all going live on the 22nd of September. Also, additionally, at that point, kind of alongside that week, the load shaping service, so the settlement systems will actually be switched on that a couple of days later in that same week as well. That's kind of setting up all the systems and the codes themselves, and obviously that's the balancing settlement code and DACUSA as well. But the actual migration of metering points, that won't start until a month later in October. They're known as milestones 11 and 12, and that was just the separation of the different types of meters. Potentially we're going to go at different times originally in the plan, but essentially that's migration start in October, and migration will start off slowly and be ramped up, and there'll be a period of kind of close monitoring whilst and kind of criteria to go through to make sure that we can increase the volumes of migration appropriately. In October 2026, known as milestone 14, this is when all suppliers must be able to accept the MHHS metering points. So kind of must be, if there's a switch, you must be able to take any metering point that's already been migrated into the MHHS arrangements. And then there's a kind of another I'm going to say 6-month period, but it's a bit longer than that, another 7-month period where migration will continue, and migration is due to complete in May 2027, and that's milestone 15 in the programme. If we go on to the next slide, kind of focusing a bit more into the actual go live and the cut over into go live. So the implementation date of the code is the 22nd of September, as we've talked about, and that's a Monday. And we've got the weekend beforehand when a lot of the systems and everything will be kind of being switched over. There'll be a formal kind of overall programme go no go decision on the Friday just before that, and off the back of well, not off the back of that, either way, the rec changes into the code will go ahead on the 22nd of September on the Monday morning. So there is a programme cutover plan of kind of all the different elements that need to be factored in, and making sure that everything is lined up and set to go alongside each other. And you can find out more information on that on the MHHS programme website, and I've included the link there in the slides, so you can go look at that in more detail. From a rec perspective, for us it's very much around the code release, so our rec release on the 22nd of September. There's various things from an operational readiness perspective, the teams within the code manager and within Reco being ready, and kind of processes and internal processes and things that we need to do, but we're also making a lot of material available, for example, on the MHHS wiki pages for people, and we'll be updating various portal pages that are the content where it's impacted by the MHHS arrangements, and also alongside that the electricity inquiry service cutover activity, so switching to the new inquiry service system. There was a webinar yesterday afternoon specifically on the EES changes and the cutover details kind of were discussed there. I've got a little bit more information here today as well, but if anybody wants to get really close to the detail, if you weren't on it already, I think it was quite well attended. You can Reco will be making the details of that webinar available kind of over the next week. So obviously there are a number of changes that suppliers and meter operation agents need to implement for M8, and from a performance assurance perspective, we're ensuring that parties understand those requirements, and there is a management assertion requirement that needs to be sent in on the 6th of August in relation to that. The other key thing that is changing at Go Live is the move from market domain data to industry standing data. So the industry standing data will go live on the 22nd of September as well, and will be used for all the MHHS migrated metering points. MGD will still be available, and the data transferred over to ISD, and there are certain data items in there that will be, the valid sets will be frozen. If we go on to the next slide. So specifically on the electricity inquiry service, over that weekend, the new system will obviously be implemented. In terms of the impacts to users of the service, the database that sits behind it will be frozen. So you'll only be able to access the service in read-only mode over the weekend, so on that Saturday and Sunday. So it means that any data that's received in won't be updated over those 2 days. So that only kind of applies to updates received from CSS, because the MPAS updates don't come through over the weekend anyway. You'll be able to view the data that's held in both the portal and the API as normal, but obviously if anyone's sent through anything that needs updating, it won't come through till the Monday. And yeah, so anything that needs to be written to the database, so that includes the inquiry service, but also it'll impact SDET messages, the new metering point request tool, and the cross metering tool all sit within the same platform. There will be some minor changes that parties will see, users will see from the 22nd of September, kind of from a visual point of view and what's available, but also obviously the supply number as under R83 will be changing at that point as well. And the APIs obviously being updated as part of that activity as well. And anything that's MHHS specific will be returned as null until the metering points are migrated over. If we go on to the next slide, just a bit of a view of kind of other rec services and parties kind of activity that needs to happen. So from a central switching service, we talked about R44 and R97 before, about implementing the processing of the SMDR appointments. These were kind of implemented in time for testing, the programme systems integration testing last year, and are kind of already in the system and lying dormant, so there's no cutover activities specifically for CSS, but obviously that functionality will then be available. The MPRS software provided by St Clements is being updated, and kind of across the board the DNOs will be implementing the new software that's made available. We haven't yet had confirmation whether there's going to be any outages in terms of ERDS over the weekend, but when we got that information we will share it. And then obviously amongst parties themselves, you're requiring to update your systems and making sure that you're kind of ready, and those are the kind of activities that you'll be managing yourselves and feeding into the programme with those plans. And as I mentioned already, there's the management assertion that we need in the run-up to go live as well. We go on to the next slide. Oh, we're back onto slide A, so questions have come in. We have issue with the API winters with invalid MPAS. If it's technical issues with the API, it's best to contact CNC Group directly through the normal help desk email address that you would contact for them. We can make that available if people need afterwards. But it's the standard help desk directly with the CNC provider, with the EES provider.
I'll pop the email in the chat. But in the meantime, we'll move on.
I'm back over to Holly.
Thank you. If we go on to the next slide. So in a normal release, there is post-implementation support that we provide. With MHHS, there's quite a bit more going on. So we are going to up the activities that we do post-release. So there is two different types of release. We have early life support, which is managed by the programme, and then we also have hypercare. So I've put the differences between the two there. We will be looking at increased hypercare. So we'll be running a higher level and longer hypercare for the M8 release compared to standard releases, and that's just to be around for support, to quickly fix any issues that are fed back to us. It will ensure the successful implementation of the release, ensure support is available to all REC stakeholders and parties. It will include a monitoring of issues and queries raised, and then the resolution of those issues and queries, and then we can feed that back to the wider programme monitoring under MHHS programme early life support as well. There'll be more details of that coming out once we've finalised exactly what that will look like, and how you can feed specific issues into us. So keep an eye out in the bulletin, and we'll communicate out exactly what that's going to look like in the weeks post M8 go live. Thanks. And we'll pause there again for any questions.
Yep, we'll move on to the Q&A. First question is, how long will the hypercare last for, or is this TBC?
It is still TBC. We will communicate it out in terms of what that will look like. It's likely to be daily. There will be something in the calendar daily, but in terms of how long it is, we'll communicate that out at a later date.